Hello humans, welcome back, and this is the last video in the Polygon series, at least in terms of operating with them. We're going to go into the mesh tools now, which is quite handy because most of the time you'll be using those. Let me just pop this out and let's go to these according to the usefulness of those. So let's create a polycube again, move it up a little bit, and let's go from down to up. Okay, first of all is the target weld. It's essentially it does exactly what it says on the tin. We're going to go into our face mode, delete a couple of faces, and if we go into vertex mode, you'll see that the vertices are still there. So the target weld, essentially, once enabled, you can pick a vertex and then you can basically weld it to another vertex. It's like collapsing vertices together. Very handy, a very handy tool for closing different holes. Obviously, depending on what you need done, in some cases the bridge tool would be, the bridge function would perform a better, you get a better result out of it, because in our case, as you can see, because we've created these, we basically welded these vertices together, we collapsed them. This creates some problems. It's very similar to collapse edges. So if we go into edge mode, remember from last video, essentially you should be able to collapse edges here. It doesn't allow to collapse. There's no collapse here from oh, there we go, collapse edges. So you can collapse them. You can target weld, by the way, edges as well. Maybe I forgot to mention, but just collapse the edge. As you can see, it creates something that's undesirable because it depends on what exactly you need. But you could target weld edges as well if you wanted to, right? So in our case, probably edge something like this in order to create a geometry, proper geometry. It's useful in many cases because this usually is when you want to get rid of vertices or maybe collapse different vertices. There's also options like these in the right mouse button, but we're going to talk about these options later. The quad draw, we already went through that. The slide edge is quite ridiculous in my opinion, because essentially you can grab an edge and slide it around, which I'll be honest with you, I really don't know why would you want that, because you've got the constraints. You can always slide an edge without having the tool for it, so that's quite useless in my opinion, but it is a tool nonetheless. The paint transfer attributes, it does the exact same thing as the function to transfer attributes from the mesh tool, from the mesh menu here, the transfer attributes. Difference being that this will be conformed to your mouse button. Okay, so you'll use a brush and do that over those. The paint reduce weights stuff, I really don't know what that does, because the paint weights tool is usually for animating, and I really don't know what this thing does. If it does the exact same thing, I don't think it belongs in this menu. But let's go ahead and click and see what it does. Doesn't do anything. Let's click here. Edge loop or path movement slide along the neighboring edges. Okay, so let's go and select that. Okay, so paint reduce weights for some reason doesn't really do anything impressive. So I don't know why would you ever need this. There's an edge loop, you just slide it up and down, snaps the different points. Absolutely clueless when you'd need this. Okay, so it's available, but why would you use it? It's beyond me. The offset edge loop does exactly the same thing. You just click and drag and you get a couple of other edge loops along the edges, which is maybe handy when you need to insert some, but you can also do the same by inserting an edge loop. So there's that. So why would you do that? Really, I don't know. The make hole bit is kind of tricky, so you can select the thing that you want to make the hole in, and then middle mouse button, and it's going to create a hole in there. So basically it's like deleting something. So there's a hole. you can select, basically it should give you the size of the hole that you want to create, I believe. Let's see. Punch a hole and select the face, the shape of the second face. Well, when would you use this? I still don't know. Like this, it's like it's quite ridiculous to use it. Maybe if you're some cool guy, you probably would have an idea, but this just seems like a waste of a tool for me. The create polygon tool, that's pretty cool because you get to create some polygons from, let's say, from top down. This is our top, and you can create different polygons, and there's your polygon, right? And you can keep adding points to it until eventually you just close it with enter, I believe, and there's your polygon here. So it's not unlike the polygon placement in Unreal Engine, where you do that with spacebar, though. Here you do that with the mouse button. But honestly, I don't know why would you need that either. Okay, that's another tool I believe is useless. But then again, maybe you will find some, some kind of use for those. So I'm going to delete these. Go to object mode, delete them. The next thing on the agenda, geez, we punched a bunch of holes in here. I don't even know how that thing punches holes, by the way. Like, why would it make such a hole is beyond me. Maybe this is an issue with rendering. So if we go into our wireframe mode, like all of the polygons are still there. So what it does is, I have no idea what it does, right? So it doesn't really matter. After that, we've got the crease tool, which is very useful. Essentially what it does is you select an edge and you can crease it. So if you were to smooth this, you'll see that the higher the crease, the more pronounced the geometry will be. But we already went through that in another video, so I'm not gonna stop and talk about this for too long. The next thing we've got is the connect tool, which essentially allows you to connect different sides. So you just press enter and it creates an edge loop, basically connects them. So there's another thing that I don't really understand. Why would you need to use this? Well, middle mouse button would create basically more. You can open the tool options here, and obviously there's probably more advanced stuff. Why would you need this is again beyond me, because the next tool I'm going to show you is essentially all of those combined. Append to polygon, I really don't know what that does either. Click boundary edges. What? No idea. Okay, absolutely no idea. I believe that's when, if you have a bounding box, maybe that's what it's for, but no clue. Absolutely no clue what this could be used for. Maybe I have to select an edge. Forget it. Forget it. This is the most useful tool from this tool set. The quad draw, sculpting, the target weld, slide edge no need, and the multi-cut tool. The multi-cut tool is my favorite because it does all of those things at the same time. So really, this is all you need. First of all, it creates different, you can create different faces, assuming you need them. Holding shift is going to snap different vertices to the point that you need. If you hold control, it'll give you edge loops. So all of these loops that you just created, you could have just created them with the multi-cut tool. Not to mention that you will probably do it more precisely, because you can have snaps of 10% of your current loop, and you can have it snap to a particular spot that you need. Okay. The control and shift one, this is how it's done, by the way. If you just hold control, it'll allow you to create edge loops along the surface of the object. Okay. Shift just places something, and I believe you could also have, no, you can't. All right, well, these are all the options that you have, but really this does exactly the same as half these tools do. All right, and you can create some edges, for example, in this case, and click enter, and you have an edge. Obviously, you wouldn't be creating anything like this of the sort, but you can always imagine the possibilities when you combine the power of multi-cut with quad draw, which is very useful in my opinion. Shift just gives you the opportunity, such an opportunity here to place vertices. It's ridiculous. Okay, you can have place a vertex here, and then you can place a vertex here, and then you can have a particular edge cut along these percentages, as you can see the snaps here available. Otherwise, if you don't hold shift, you're not going to have a snap. So edges are very powerful when it comes to you know, the multi-cut, because that's what it's for, right? You start from here, and then maybe you have one here, and you could have another one here going to 80 degrees, and you can continue down here, right? And you can maybe go up here, and just the power of this tool is ridiculous. Press enter once you're done, and there you go. I mostly use it for edge loops. Anytime I need an edge loop, instead of going to insert edge loop, I just you know, I use the multi-cut tool, because it just gives you so much more control over what you need. Like if you press and hold shift here, okay, grab this edge here and press and hold shift, nothing's going to happen. Press and hold control, nothing's going to happen. No snaps available at all, which is quite problematic, right? So, you know, you should basically get used to using the multi-cut tool, because it's a lot more forgiving, and it gives you a lot more control. So that's really all there is to it when it comes to mesh tools. There's not that much to do here. The real power of modeling in Maya you know, happens once you combine all of these three options, right? The mesh, the edit mesh, and the mesh tools. In some cases, the mesh display as well, but we're not going to talk about that now. So with all of these three menus, you should be able to basically create anything you want. Even though a lot of these tools are kind of useless in my opinion, you may always find the one case that you might need them, all right? Maybe the spin edge, you'd ever want to spin an edge like this, okay, and basically gimp yourself with triangles. But whatever, this is a program that's not only for game development, unfortunately, because anything close to a game, especially for Unreal, by the way, you should never have triangles when you're importing something to Unreal, because Unreal will triangulate for you. Okay, so you have a triangle. I believe it'll record as a triangle, but it's not going to be following the exact shape. Like there will be problems, all right? You can have something very nicely animated, and then the deformation, they're going to be all over the place once you export. So always make sure to have good edge loops, okay? And because this is a disaster in terms of edge loops. Like this is, like you'd never do that, all right? And always make sure to have quads. That's what you want. You want quads. You don't want this, all right? You never want this. You want this. That's basically all, really. There's definitely a lot of variety when it comes to the toolkit, and a lot of it is accessible through shift right mouse button. For example, in edge mode, you've got the crease tool, right? The offset edge tool. Like maybe you'd need this, but you can drag a tool as well. You can drag an edge loop too. So it can slide. Maybe this would be a little bit more useful instead of going into constraints, right? Because you could go into constraints in our case. And where is it? Now I lost it. Wow. I lost the constraints. Oh yeah, because we're not moving it. But if we move the edge loop, in our case, this one, we can go into constraints. And we can actually transform constraint. We go edge slide or surface slide, and this is going to achieve the exact same. Well, this is going to achieve the exact same result as the previous ones. All right. So as you can see in our case, really, there's not much to slide, but we can't go over the bounding box of these edges. All right. Once you're done, the only thing you have to make sure is just to turn it off. But again. In some cases, it might be just easier to go and just slide an edge, and just slide it along like this, or just get the whole edge loop and slide it. It's really a workflow preference, but this should probably give you enough information, and you should have enough knowledge now of basically modeling anything you could ever want. At least 80% of everything you can come up with, you should be able to model it with the current understanding of Maya. All right. Whew. Okay, I don't think we've lost anything along the way. There's nothing really important. The mesh display, this stuff is only for normals in general, and the harden and soften edges, which is available through your right mouse button menu. So in the meantime, before we begin modeling, I recommend you essentially like get a cube, right, and just practice with it, okay? In other words, don't try to make anything out of it, but practice the workflow. In other words, Like now, for example, we're currently in the move tool. So grab, hold shift and press the right mouse button and see your available options, right? Insert edge, multi-cut, target weld. These are tools that we've just talked about. We also have tools here. We got different options from different menus, like the mirror, for example. It's from the mesh tools. It's not, sorry, from the mesh menu set. It's not from the, it's not from the mesh tool set. You got different mappings here for UVs. We're not going to talk about that. For some reason, you got triangulate, quadrangulate too. Separate, combine, booleans, right? The same thing we just talked about, but they're available in a lot more feasible form, I believe. And also, this is very handy because it conforms to your current tool. So if you go into rotate, this may give you other options. In our case, it doesn't. But if you go into face mode, this will definitely give you other options. You can see we got merge faces to center. Whatever this is going to do, it create this. In our case, in this case, it was a bad command, but you can certainly find a use for it as you're modeling. Okay, so we got definitely it can bevel the face so it sticks out, right? In our case, the fraction is too ridiculously huge, but you can have less segments, for example, right? You can increase the depth of it. In our case, this doesn't really matter because this is a side face. But after that, you can maybe extrude it, right, and push it down. Yeah, and maybe scale it down as well on both sides. So now you have some kind of a weird window, right? You basically have a lot of abilities to manipulate the mesh, and it all comes out from shift right mouse button. And all of these basically depend on what mode you're in. Currently, we're in the vertex. We can merge vertices together. We can target weld them, right? You've got these all, like the crease tool, for example, which, why would you need this for vertices? That's pretty cool. I didn't know you could crease, I didn't know you could crease, I didn't know you could crease vertices. What's going to happen if we, wow, okay, well that's pretty cool, though very weird. Most of the time you'd want to crease edges. But yeah. Okay, maybe it is, it has a degree of coolness to it. But yeah, you can extrude the vertex even, which, why would you want to? Maybe there is a reason for that. Maybe you might want to do that at some point. But it doesn't really differ from moving the vertex, in my opinion. But whatever. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not. And remember, always delete the history once you got too much. Last time Maya actually crashed because I stacked too many inputs that didn't agree with each other, and there was a problem and just crashed. So always take a look at your channel box. Currently we have very few inputs, so there's not much danger of Maya crashing. But imagine if you got a bunch of objects here, tons of them really, and then things become quite a lot more confusing, and things can really start crashing on you. So make sure to always clean the history once you're done with your object. Remember though, once you're done, once you clean the history, there's no going back. All right, so make sure to back up your work, autosaves, right? They're all available to you, and utilize really everything we just went through in order to just manipulate this object. Okay, maybe even try to make something out of it. I don't know, but at this point, that is all that you need to know about polygon modeling. Well, about 75% that you need to know about polygon modeling, because we did not go over curves, or lofting curves and deformers. We never went through that. So maybe in the future I will make a video for it, but I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it, right? Maybe write a comment if you want, but chances are I'm not going to read it either in time, or I'm not going to read it at all. Okay? Anyway, use your spare time a little bit a day, an hour a day. Time flies when you start experimenting with Maya because there's so many options. And the cool thing is that a lot of stuff that you learn in Maya will actually translate along other software applications. So don't think that you're wasting your time, all right? Although I do believe this is a fairly unique workflow, with the space bar and the right mouse button, all these options here with control and shift. Oh, I created a surface. Well, there you go. You have to be careful what you're clicking at. Yeah. Okay. That is all, guys, and I will see you in the next video when we will either start talking about curves and deformers, or we will start modeling outright for our game, because it's about time, right? I mean, it's been several videos. We haven't actually done anything. We've just been talking about tools and UI and settings and all that. So like I said, game development is not an easy thing. It takes a lot of knowledge to actually do even the simplest of things. Like in our case, the game that we just talked, it's a very simple game, mind you. And notice that we haven't even talked about UV maps. We haven't talked about how normals work, what are tangents, things like painting, like texture maps and materials, physically based rendering, like what is a shader, yeah. And we haven't even touched the surface of Unreal Engine 4 either, because UE4 has plenty of other editors, animation editors, you've got material editors, you got your blueprint editors. There's a bunch of information for that. So yeah, I told you should buckle up. So I hope that this is like a third of the way in, maybe, or a fifth, or a sixth, maybe a sixth of the way in. So this is like, I don't know, 15% of the overall knowledge that you need, maybe even less, maybe 10%, because then we got audio too. Yeah, there's a lot to take in. So enjoy, guys. Play around with your Maya. Maybe watch a couple of other tutorials, more specific ones. There's plenty of videos on YouTube for specific tools. There's even a guy who I think Maya, his channel is called. He actually works in Autodesk, and he has really good and really well presented tutorials. Although it's kind of hard to find a backlog of what he has. Because I believe he assumes most of the time that you already know what you're doing. But if you're stuck on a particular tool, or if you want to learn something new, or you got a question about something that I didn't cover, or maybe I didn't know how it worked, right, a particular tool, either look it up in the documentation, or go and check out Maya, because that guy, I think he's covered every tool there is, I think. And if he didn't, someone has bound to have. The good thing about Maya is that there's plenty of information on the internet. And this video is just a drop in the lake. Okay, right. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.